I didn't think I'd ever come back to this city. 3 years had passed since I left. 3 years since I'd walked away from everything I knew, my pack, my family, the life I thought I was supposed to live. 3 years since my divorce was finalized and I'd taken my son, packed 2 suitcases, and driven until the mountains disappeared behind us. I thought I'd left it all behind. But standing in the fluorescent-lit aisles of a supermarket on a Tuesday afternoon, with my 4-year-old son tugging at my hand and asking for cereal, I realized how foolish that thought had been. Because he was here. I smelled him before I saw him. It wasn't cologne or soap. It was deeper than that. Primal. The kind of scent that bypassed your brain entirely and went straight to some ancient part of your nervous system that remembered when survival meant knowing who was predator and who was prey. Pine and smoke. Cold mountain air and something darker, something that made my wolf stir for the first time in months. My hand tightened on the shopping cart handle. "Mama, can we get the one with the marshmallows?" Ethan was looking up at me with those wide brown eyes, completely oblivious to the way my heart had just stuttered in my chest. "Sure, baby," I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. "Put it in the cart." I should have left right then. Should have abandoned the half-filled cart and walked straight out the door. But I didn't. Because I told myself I was being paranoid. That the scent was just my imagination, just my wolf's anxiety playing tricks on me in a city I'd sworn I'd never return to. I told myself a lot of things in those few seconds. None of them were true. I turned the corner into the next aisle, pasta and canned goods, and that's when I saw him. Kale Volkov stood near the end of the aisle, dressed in black despite the summer heat, his presence somehow making the bright supermarket lighting seem dimmer. He wasn't looking at the shelves. He wasn't pretending to shop. He was looking directly at me. No. Not at me. At Ethan. My son had wandered a few steps ahead, completely unaware, reaching for a can of tomato sauce on a lower shelf. Kale's expression didn't change. His face remained perfectly neutral, almost bored. But I saw the way his eyes tracked my son's movements. The way his head tilted just slightly, the way an alpha processes information about pack members. Or potential threats. My wolf wanted to bare her teeth. Wanted to put myself between my child and this man who had once been the most dangerous person I'd ever known. Instead, I did what I'd learned to do in the 3 years since I'd left. I went very, very still. Kale's eyes shifted from Ethan to me. For a moment, just a heartbeat, something flickered in that cold, controlled gaze. Then it was gone, replaced by the same flat neutrality that had always made him impossible to read. He didn't speak. Didn't move toward us. Didn't acknowledge me at all beyond that single moment of eye contact. He simply turned and walked away, disappearing around the corner like he'd never been there at all. I realized I'd been holding my breath. "Mama?" Ethan was looking up at me again, the can of tomato sauce clutched in both hands. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine, sweetheart." I forced a smile, forced my hands to unclench from the cart handle. "Let's finish shopping and go home." But my wolf was pacing now, restless and uneasy. Because Kale Volkov didn't do coincidences. And if he was here, in this city, in this supermarket, on this specific Tuesday afternoon, then he'd known I would be here too. I didn't sleep that night. I told myself it was because Ethan had a nightmare around 2 a.m. and crawled into bed with me, his small warm body pressed against my side, his breathing eventually evening out into the soft rhythm of child sleep. But that was a lie. I'd been awake long before Ethan's bad dream. I'd been lying in the dark of our small rental house, staring at the ceiling, my wolf prowling restlessly beneath my skin. Kale Volkov. I hadn't seen him in 3 years. Hadn't heard his name in longer than that, not since my ex-husband had mentioned him in passing, always with that edge of fear that alphas got when they talked about men more powerful than themselves. "Stay away from the Volkov pack," Marcus had told me once, early in our marriage, back when he still pretended to care about my safety. "Their alpha king doesn't play by the normal rules. He's not interested in alliances or diplomacy. Cross him once, and he'll end you." cross him twice, and he'll end everyone you've ever known. I'd been terrified of Kale Volkov then. Terrified of the stories, the rumors, the whispered warnings that followed his name like a curse. I'd made sure to never be anywhere he might be. Made sure to keep my head down, to stay invisible, to be the perfect low-rank Omega wife that Marcus wanted me to be. And then my marriage had fallen apart anyway. Marcus had found his true mate, a female alpha from a neighboring pack, powerful and beautiful and everything I wasn't. The divorce had been quick and quiet. He'd let me take Ethan without a fight, probably relieved to be rid of the reminder of his mistake marriage. My own pack, my family, had sided with him. Had told me I was being selfish for leaving. That I should have stayed, should have accepted my place as a rejected mate, should have raised my son in the pack even if his father wanted nothing to do with us. I'd left anyway. And I'd driven until I found a city far enough away that I thought I'd never have to smell another alpha's dominance scent again. Far enough away that Ethan could grow up normal, human, away from pack politics and power plays and all the things that had slowly suffocated me. But here we were. And Kale Volkov had looked at my son like he was calculating something. I pulled Ethan closer, breathed in his little boy scent of shampoo and sleep and innocence. Whatever Kale wanted, whatever game he was playing, I wouldn't let him near my son. I wouldn't let anyone hurt us again. The knock came 3 days later. I was making dinner, spaghetti, Ethan's favorite, when I heard it. 3 deliberate strikes against the front door, not loud but somehow impossible to ignore. My wolf went completely still. I turned off the stove. Ethan, stay in the living room, okay? Keep watching your show. Okay, Mama. I walked to the front door slowly, my heart hammering against my ribs. I didn't need to look through the peephole to know who was standing on my front porch. I could smell him through the door. Pine and smoke and winter wind. I opened the door. Kale Volkov stood on my porch like he owned it. Like he owned the whole street, the whole city, the whole world. He was dressed in black again, seemed like that was all he ever wore, and in the late afternoon sunlight, I could see details I'd missed in the supermarket. The sharp line of his jaw. The silver ring on his right hand. The way his dark eyes tracked every micro-expression on my face like he was reading a book written in a language only he understood. Mira Castellan, he said. His voice was deep and quiet, the kind of quiet that didn't need volume to command attention. We need to talk. My wolf wanted to submit. Wanted to drop her eyes and bare her throat and show this alpha that she knew her place. I'd spent 3 years learning to ignore that instinct. I don't think we do, I said. My voice was steady. I was proud of that. You're living in my city. I wasn't aware you owned it. Something that might have been amusement flickered in his eyes. I don't. But my pack controls the territory. Which means I know everyone who lives here. I know their names, their ranks, their bloodlines. He paused. I didn't know about you. It wasn't an accusation. It was a statement of fact. And somehow that was worse. I'm nobody, I said. Just a single mother trying to raise her son in peace. I'm not part of any pack. I don't want any trouble. I know. 2 words. That was all. But the way he said them made my skin prickle. Then why are you here? Kale was silent for a moment. His eyes shifted past me, into the house, toward where Ethan was singing along to his cartoon in the living room. Because, he said quietly, you're not as invisible as you think you are. My stomach dropped. What does that mean? It means your former pack knows where you are. It means your ex-husband has been asking questions. And it means, he stopped. Drew in a slow breath. When he spoke again, his voice was even softer, even more controlled. It means you need protection. Whether you want it or not. I wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him I didn't need anything from him, didn't need an alpha deciding what was best for me. But my hands were shaking. Why do you care? The question came out more vulnerable than I intended. Kale looked at me for a long moment. In the fading sunlight, his eyes were almost black. "I don't know yet," he said. And then he turned and walked away, leaving me standing in my doorway with my heart racing and my wolf howling in confusion. He came back the next day. Not to my door this time. I saw him across the street when I was walking Ethan to the park, standing beside a black car with tinted windows, watching. Just watching. He didn't approach. Didn't wave. Didn't acknowledge us at all. But I felt his presence like a weight against my skin. Felt the way his attention tracked us down the sidewalk, into the park, onto the playground where Ethan immediately ran toward the swings. I sat on a bench and pretended I didn't notice the Alpha King standing 50 yards away. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Don't be alarmed. I'm not here for you. I'm here because 2 members of your former pack entered the city this morning. They're looking for you." My blood went cold. I looked up. Cale was still standing beside his car, phone in hand. Even from this distance, I could see the controlled set of his shoulders. Another text came through. "They won't approach while I'm here. But you need to decide if you want to keep running or if you want to deal with this." My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I didn't know what to say. Didn't know if I should be grateful or terrified or both. Finally, I typed, "Why are you helping me?" The response came immediately. "Because you're mine to protect." I stared at those words for a long time. Not, "You belong to me." Not, "You're mine to own." Mine to protect. It shouldn't have made a difference. Shouldn't have made my wolf settle, shouldn't have made something tight in my chest loosen just slightly. But it did. They came for me that night. I'd just put Ethan to bed, had just finished cleaning up the dinner dishes, when I smelled them. 2 male wolves. Both from my former pack. Both carrying the aggressive, territorial scent of alphas who thought they had a right to be here. My wolf snarled. I moved to Ethan's bedroom first, my instinct screaming at me to protect my son. He was fast asleep, his stuffed bear clutched in one arm. I locked his door from the inside, then climbed out his window into the backyard, moving as quietly as I could. If they wanted me, fine. But they wouldn't get near my son. I made it 3 steps before I saw them. 2 large shapes moving through my backyard, their eyes reflecting the porch light like animals. I recognized them both. River and Drake. Mid-rank enforcers from my old pack. The kind of wolves who followed orders without question. "Mira." River's voice was rough, familiar in the worst way. "Your family wants you to come home." "This is my home." "No." Drake moved closer, and I could smell the aggression rolling off him in waves. "Your home is with your pack. With your family. You don't get to just leave. You don't get to take an alpha's son and disappear." "Marcus gave up his rights," I said. My voice was shaking but I held my ground. "He didn't want us." "That's not your decision to make." River lunged. I didn't have time to shift. Didn't have time to do anything except throw my arms up and brace for the impact. It never came. One moment River was airborne, teeth bared, coming straight for me. The next moment he was on the ground 10 feet away, Kale Volkov's hand wrapped around his throat. I hadn't heard him arrive. Hadn't seen him coming. He'd simply appeared, like darkness taking physical form. Drake started to move. Started to shift. Kale didn't even look at him. "Don't." One word. Spoken softly, almost gently. Drake froze mid-shift, his body caught between human and wolf, trembling with the effort of fighting his own instincts. Because when an Alpha King gave a command, you obeyed. It didn't matter what pack you came from. It didn't matter how strong you thought you were. You obeyed. Kale looked down at River, who was clawing uselessly at the hand around his throat. "You came into my territory," Kale said, his voice still quiet, still controlled. "You threatened someone under my protection. Give me one reason I shouldn't kill you right now." River couldn't speak. Could barely breathe. Kale's eyes shifted to Drake. You. Tell your alpha that Mira Castellan is no longer his concern. She's mine. If he has a problem with that, he can come discuss it with me personally. Drake managed a jerky nod. Good. Cale released River, who collapsed to the ground gasping. You have 60 seconds to leave my city. If I see either of you again, I won't be this merciful. They ran. Shifted mid-stride and disappeared into the darkness, leaving nothing behind but the scent of fear and crushed grass. Cale turned to face me. I was shaking. I couldn't stop shaking. Are you hurt? His voice had changed. Still quiet, but softer now. Almost gentle. I shook my head. Couldn't find words. Your son? Inside. Asleep. He didn't see anything. Good. We stood there in my backyard, in the artificial glow of the porch light, while my heart slowly remembered how to beat normally. You need to leave this house, Cale said. Tonight. They'll be back with more, and next time I might not be here. Where am I supposed to go? With me. My wolf whimpered. Not in fear. In something else. Something I didn't want to name. I don't even know you, I whispered. Cale was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I know. But you're going to have to trust me anyway. He was right. I knew he was right. So I climbed back through Ethan's window, gathered my sleeping son into my arms, and followed an alpha king into the night. Ale's home wasn't what I expected. I'd imagined something cold and intimidating. A fortress designed to remind everyone who entered exactly how powerful he was. Instead, he took us to a house on the edge of the city. Large, yes. Expensive, obviously. But warm. Lived in. The kind of place that felt like someone actually existed there, not just ruled from it. There's a guest suite on the second floor, Cale said as he led us inside. 2 bedrooms connected by a bathroom. I'll have someone bring your things from the rental tomorrow. Ethan was still asleep in my arms, his head heavy on my shoulder. Thank you, I said. It felt inadequate. Everything felt inadequate. Cale looked at my son. Something shifted in his expression. Something I couldn't read. How old is he? 4. Just turned 4 last month. And his father? Wants nothing to do with him. Cale's jaw tightened. Then his father is a fool. He said it with such quiet conviction that my throat went tight. I'll be downstairs if you need anything, Cale continued. You're safe here. Both of you. He started to leave, then paused. Mira. I looked up. I meant what I said in the text. You're mine to protect. That's not negotiable. But it's also not a claim. Do you understand the difference? I wasn't sure I did. But I nodded anyway. Cale studied me for a moment longer, then left, closing the door softly behind him. I stood there in the beautiful guest room, holding my sleeping son, smelling pine and smoke in the air. And for the first time in 3 years, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. I felt safe. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and pancakes. For a moment, I was disoriented. The bed was too soft, the room too large, the light coming through the windows all wrong. Then I remembered. Cale. The wolves. Running. I sat up quickly, my heart racing, and looked around for Ethan. He wasn't in the bed beside me. Panic flooded through me, sharp and immediate. I threw off the covers and ran out of the room, still wearing the clothes I'd slept in, my hair a mess, my wolf snarling with protective fury. I found them in the kitchen. Ethan was sitting at the counter, his legs swinging, eating pancakes with his hands and chattering happily. And standing at the stove, flipping more pancakes with quiet efficiency, was Cale Volkov. He looked up when I appeared in the doorway. Good morning. Mama. Ethan's face lit up. Cale made pancakes. They have chocolate chips. My wolf didn't know what to do with this information. I should have woken you, Kale said, reading the panic on my face. But he was up early, and I didn't want him to disturb you. You made him breakfast? I'm capable of basic childcare. It wasn't said defensively. Just matter of fact. I walked into the kitchen slowly, trying to process the scene in front of me. Kale Volkov, Alpha King, most dangerous wolf in the territory, the man other alphas feared, was making chocolate chip pancakes for my 4-year-old son. Do you want coffee? Kale asked. Yes. Thank you. He poured me a cup, added cream without asking how I took it. Somehow he already knew. I sat down next to Ethan, accepted the coffee, and tried to make sense of my life. Kale says we're going to stay here for a while, Ethan announced through a mouthful of pancake. Is that okay? I looked at Kale. He was watching me over the rim of his own coffee cup, his expression neutral. Yes, baby, I said quietly. That's okay. Ethan grinned and went back to his pancakes. Kale and I stared at each other across the kitchen. We need to talk, he said. After he finishes breakfast. I nodded. Because we did need to talk. About what happened last night. About what he'd said, you're mine to protect. About why an Alpha King was making pancakes in his own kitchen instead of having servants do it. About why my wolf hadn't stopped humming contentedly since I'd walked into this room. Kale took me to his study after breakfast. It was the kind of room that made sense for him, dark wood, leather furniture, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves that actually looked used. He gestured for me to sit, then took the chair across from me instead of sitting behind his desk. Equal footing. Neutral ground. My wolf noticed. Your former pack is going to be a problem, Kale said without preamble. River and Drake reported back to your alpha last night. He's not happy. He's not my alpha anymore. That's not how he sees it. I wrapped my hands around my coffee cup, needing something to hold on to. What does he want? You. Or more specifically, your son. My wolf snarled. My grip on the cup tightened until I was surprised it didn't shatter. Why? I asked. Marcus didn't want him. My family didn't want either of us. Kale was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. Did your ex-husband ever tell you about his bloodline? He said his family was powerful. That they'd been pack leaders for generations. They have. And Ethan carries that bloodline. Which makes him valuable. Kale paused. Your family made a mistake letting you leave. They didn't realize what they were giving up. A child isn't property. No. He's not. Kale's eyes were dark and steady on mine. But that's not going to stop them from treating him like one. I felt sick. So what do? We make it clear that Ethan is under my protection. That any attempt to take him will be considered an act of war against my pack. That's a big claim to make. Yes. Why would you do that? You don't even know us. Kale leaned forward slightly. I know enough. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give you right now. I stared at him, trying to understand. Trying to figure out what game he was playing, what angle he was working. But his face gave nothing away. Just that same controlled neutrality. That same quiet authority. I can't pay you, I said finally. I don't have money. I don't have connections. I can't offer you anything in return for this protection. I'm not asking you to. Everyone wants something. Yes, Kale agreed. But what I want, you can't give me yet. My heart skipped. What does that mean? He stood up, walked to the window, looked out at his territory with his hands in his pockets. It means, he said quietly, that I'm going to ask you to be patient with me. To trust that I'm not doing this to manipulate you or control you or take something from you. Then why? He turned to look at me. And for just a moment, just a heartbeat, I saw something raw in his eyes. Something that looked almost like longing. Then it was gone. Because you deserve to be protected, he said simply. Because your son deserves to grow up safe. And because I can make that happen. It wasn't a complete answer. But somehow, standing in his study with morning light streaming through the windows, it was enough. The weeks that followed developed a strange rhythm. Cale gave us space. The entire second floor was ours. He never came upstairs without invitation, never entered our rooms, never made us feel like we were prisoners or obligations. But he was always there. In the mornings, making breakfast. In the evenings, asking about our day. On weekends, suggesting activities, parks, museums, places Ethan would enjoy. He was patient with my son in a way that made my chest ache. Patient in a way Marcus had never been. He answered Ethan's endless questions without irritation. He played whatever game Ethan wanted to play. He read bedtime stories with the same quiet focus he probably used for pack business. And he never, ever pushed. Never asked for more than I was willing to give. Never made demands. Never reminded me that I was living in his house, under his protection, dependent on his goodwill. My wolf was desperately confused. Because everything she knew about alphas said this didn't make sense. Alphas took. They dominated. They claimed what they wanted and defended it with violence. They didn't make pancakes and read bedtime stories and respect boundaries. Why are you doing this? I asked him one evening after Ethan was asleep. We were in the living room. I was curled up in an armchair with tea. He was reading something on his tablet, looking unfairly attractive in casual clothes. He looked up. Doing what? All of it. The protection, yes, but also, this. The normal life. The pretending we're just regular people. Cale set down his tablet. We are regular people. You're an alpha king. And you're a mother. Ethan's a child. Those things don't stop being true just because I have a title. That's not what I mean. I know what you mean. He was quiet for a moment. You want to know why I'm not treating you like territory I've claimed. Why I'm not forcing the bond. The bond. We hadn't talked about it. Hadn't acknowledged it. But it was there, hovering between us like something alive. The reason my wolf settled when he was near. The reason I slept better in his house than I had in years. The reason I caught myself watching him when I thought he wasn't looking. Yes, I whispered. Cale leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his eyes steady on mine. Because you've spent your whole life being told what to do, he said quietly. Being told where to live, who to marry, what your place is. And I'm not going to be another alpha who takes your choices away. Even if we're fated mates, he finished when I couldn't. Yes. Even then. My heart was hammering. How long have you known? Since the supermarket. The moment I caught your scent. But you didn't say anything. No. Why? Cale's expression softened just slightly. Because if I'd claimed you then, if I'd told you what you were to me and demanded you accept it, you would have run. And I would have had to either let you go or force the bond. Neither option was acceptable. He was right. I would have run. Would have grabbed Ethan and disappeared again, spent the rest of my life looking over my shoulder. So you waited, I said. I waited. And I'll keep waiting. Until you're ready. Until you choose me because you want to, not because fate or biology or pack law says you have to. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. What if I never choose? I asked. What if I decide I don't want this? Cale held my gaze. Then I'll protect you anyway. And I'll let you go. You'd really do that? Yes. He said it with such quiet certainty that I believed him. And that belief changed something in me. The attack came 2 months after I'd moved into Cale's house. I should have known it was coming. Should have been prepared. But I'd gotten comfortable. Safe. I'd started to believe that maybe, just maybe, my former pack had given up. I was wrong. It was late afternoon. Ethan and I were in the backyard, playing with sidewalk chalk. Cale was inside, dealing with pack business. The sun was warm, the air smelled like summer, and my son was laughing. Then the wind shifted. Multiple wolves. At least 6. Moving fast toward the house from different directions. My wolf screamed a warning. Ethan. I kept my voice calm even though panic was clawing at my throat. We need to go inside right now. But Mama, I'm not done. Now. Something in my tone made him drop the chalk and run toward me. I scooped him up and started toward the house. We didn't make it. They came over the fence, through the trees, around the side of the house. 6 wolves, all in shifted form, all radiating aggression and intent. I recognized the lead wolf. My brother. Daniel. I shifted Ethan higher on my hip, put myself between him and the wolves, and felt my own wolf rise to meet the threat even though I knew I was outmatched. Mira. Daniel shifted back to human form, not bothering with modesty. You've caused a lot of trouble. Leave us alone, I said. My voice was shaking but steady. Please. We just want to be left alone. That's not an option anymore. He took a step closer. Marcus wants his son. The pack wants you back. You're coming home. No. That wasn't a request. The other wolves began to circle. I knew I couldn't fight them. Knew I couldn't protect Ethan if they all attacked at once. But I'd die trying. Last chance, Daniel said. Come willingly, or we take you by force. I felt my wolf begin to shift, felt my bones start to break and reform. I was going to put Ethan down, was going to tell him to run, was going to buy him whatever time I could. Power exploded through the air. It wasn't a scent or a sound. It was deeper than that. Heavier. Like gravity had suddenly doubled, like the air itself had become thick with dominance and fury and absolute authority. Every wolf in the yard dropped to their knees. Including my brother. Including me. Even my wolf submitted, unable to do anything else, unable to fight against that much concentrated alpha dominance. Only Ethan was unaffected, clutching at my shirt and whimpering in fear. Cale walked out of the house. He moved slowly, calmly, like he had all the time in the world. Like 6 hostile wolves in his territory were barely worth noticing. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. Almost conversational. You came into my home, he said. Threatened my mate and her child. Attempted to take them by force. I felt the word mate settle over me like a brand. Claiming me. Protecting me. Making it clear to everyone present exactly what I was to him. Do you have any idea, Cale continued, how many ways I could kill you right now? Daniel tried to speak. Couldn't. The alpha dominance was too strong. He was still on his knees, head bowed, body trembling with the effort of not rolling over and exposing his throat. I'm going to make this very simple, Cale said. Mira Castellan is under my protection. So is her son. If you come near them again, if you even think about them, I will personally visit your alpha and discuss his pack's continued existence in my territory. He paused. Do you understand? Somehow, Daniel managed a nod. Good. Now leave. Before I change my mind about letting you live. The dominance released. The 6 wolves scattered, shifting and running, leaving nothing behind but disturbed grass and the scent of fear. Cale walked over to where I was still kneeling, still holding Ethan. He crouched down in front of us, his eyes checking us both for injuries. Are you hurt? I shook my head. Couldn't speak. Ethan? I'm scared, my son whimpered. Cale's expression softened. He reached out slowly, carefully, giving Ethan time to pull away. When my son didn't, Cale gently ruffled his hair. I know, he said quietly. But you're safe now. I promise. Ethan looked at him with wide, trusting eyes. Promise? Promise. Then Kale looked at me. And what I saw in his eyes made my breath catch. Fury. Carefully controlled but burning underneath. Not at me. At the wolves who'd threatened us. At the situation. At the fact that I'd been scared. I should have been out here sooner, he said. I'm sorry. You have nothing to apologize for. My voice was rough. You saved us. I almost didn't save you in time. He stood up, offered me his hand. I took it, let him pull me to my feet with Ethan still in my arms. We need to talk, Kale said. But first, let's get him settled. We put Ethan down for an early nap. The fear and adrenaline had exhausted him. He fell asleep almost immediately, his hand clutching his stuffed bear. I stood in the doorway of his room for a long time, just watching him breathe. He's safe. Kale's voice came from behind me, quiet and sure. I won't let anyone hurt him. I believed him. Finally, I closed the door and turned to face him. You called me your mate, I said. Yes. In front of other wolves. That's a public claim. Yes. You said you'd wait. That you'd let me choose. Kale's jaw tightened. I know what I said. And I meant it. But they were going to take you. And the only way to make them understand, to make it clear to every pack in this territory that you're untouchable, was to claim you. So you didn't give me a choice. No, he said quietly. I didn't. And I'm sorry for that. But I'm not sorry I protected you. I should have been angry. Should have felt betrayed, manipulated, controlled. But I didn't. Because I'd seen his face when he'd walked out of the house. I'd felt the fury in his dominance. And I understood, with sudden clarity, that he hadn't made a calculated political move. He'd been terrified of losing me. Why did you wait so long? I asked. If we're fated mates, if you knew, why didn't you just claim me from the beginning? Kale ran a hand through his hair, the first sign of frustration I'd ever seen from him. Because, he said, the mate bond doesn't care about consent. If I'd claimed you when you were weak, when you'd just been betrayed by your pack and your family, when you had no resources and nowhere to go, the bond would have forced you to accept it. You would have had no choice. And I couldn't. I can't be that alpha. Not to you. So you waited until I was stronger. Until you had options. Until you could say no and mean it. I stared at him. This powerful, controlled alpha king who'd turned his whole life upside down to give me the thing I'd never had before. A choice. The bond still isn't complete, I said quietly. No. You're holding it back. Yes. Why? Kale took a step closer. Close enough that I could feel the heat of him, smell that pine and smoke scent that made my wolf whimper with need. Because, he said, his voice rough, when I finally claim you, when the bond snaps into place, I want you to be sure. I want you to choose me. Not because you're scared or grateful or dependent. But because you want this. Want me. My heart was racing. And if I choose you now? Now is too soon. You're still processing what just happened. Still running on adrenaline and fear. So you're going to keep waiting. Yes. I stepped closer. Close enough to see the silver flecks in his dark eyes. Close enough to see the way his jaw tightened as he controlled himself. Even though it's hurting you, I said. To hold back the bond. I can feel it. The strain. I've survived worse. That's not an answer. Kale's eyes closed for just a moment. When they opened again, they were dark and raw and full of everything he'd been holding back. Yes, he said quietly. It hurts. Every day. Every moment you're near me. But that pain is mine to carry. Not yours. I reached up, cupped his face in my hand. He went very still, like he was afraid to move, afraid to break whatever fragile thing existed between us. You're a good man, I whispered. I'm really not. Yes. You are. You're patient and kind, and you make my son feel safe. You make me feel safe. And I stopped. Swallowed hard. You what? His voice was barely a breath. I'm starting to think that maybe fate got it right. Just this once. Cale's hand came up to cover mine, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. You don't have to decide now, he said. You can take all the time you need. And if I want to decide now? Then I'll tell you that you're still healing. That you've been through trauma. That you deserve time to be sure. I smiled. Couldn't help it. You're going to protect me even from myself? If that's what it takes. I stood on my toes and pressed my forehead against his. Felt him shudder, felt the bond strain between us, pulling tight. Okay, I whispered. I'll wait. But Cale? Yes? Don't wait too long. 3 more weeks passed. Cale kept his distance. Not physically, he was still there every day, still present in our lives. But he was careful. Always asking permission. Always giving me space. Always making sure I knew I had a choice. It was driving me insane. My wolf knew what she wanted. Knew who she wanted. But every time I tried to close the distance between us, Cale would find a reason to step back. Not yet, he'd say. You need more time. I don't want more time. I know. But I do. He was infuriating. He was also right. Because as the weeks passed, I realized something. The attraction I felt for him, the pull of the mate bond, that was strong. But what was growing underneath it was stronger. I was falling in love with him. Not because of fate or scent or biology. But because of who he was. The way he read bedtime stories in different voices to make Ethan laugh. The way he taught my son to be brave without being cruel. The way he looked at me like I was precious, like I was worth protecting, like I was worth waiting for. I'd been claimed before. Marcus had marked me, mated me, bound me to him through pack law and ritual. But I'd never been chosen the way Cale was choosing me. And I'd never chosen anyone the way I was choosing him. I made my decision on a Tuesday. Nothing special about the day. No dramatic incident. No grand revelation. Just a quiet Tuesday evening, with Ethan asleep upstairs and Cale reading in the living room, and me realizing that I didn't want to wait anymore. I sat down next to him on the couch. He looked up, closed his book, gave me his full attention the way he always did. I need to tell you something, I said. Okay. I've made my choice. His whole body went still. Mira. Let me finish. I took his hand, laced our fingers together. For the first time in my life, I'm making a choice that's entirely mine. Not because someone told me to. Not because I'm scared or desperate or have nowhere else to go. But because I want to. What are you saying? I'm saying I choose you, Cale. Not because we're fated mates. Not because you protected me or given me a home or made my son feel safe, though you've done all those things. I choose you because you gave me back something I thought I'd lost forever. What's that? My agency. My voice. My belief that I deserve to be chosen, not just claimed. Cale's hand tightened on mine. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. If we do this, if I claim you, there's no going back. The bond will be permanent. You'll be tied to me for the rest of your life. I know. And if you ever regret it, I won't. Mira. His voice was rough. I need you to understand what you're agreeing to. I'm not an easy man. I have enemies. My position comes with danger. And I'm broken in ways you haven't seen yet. I reached up, cupped his face in both hands. So am I said quietly. But maybe we can be broken together. Something in his eyes cracked. All that careful control, all that restraint, finally breaking under the weight of everything he'd been holding back. I don't deserve you, he whispered. Too bad. You're stuck with me. He laughed. It was rough and raw and the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. When? He asked. Now. Tonight. Unless you need more time to be sure. I've been sure since the supermarket. Then what are we waiting for? Cale pulled me closer, rested his forehead against mine, breathed me in. Nothing, he said. We're not waiting for anything anymore. The claiming was private. Just the two of us, in the quiet of his room, with the moon streaming through the windows. He was careful. Gentle. Kept asking if I was sure, if I was okay, if I wanted to stop. I told him every time that I'd never been more certain of anything. When his teeth finally broke skin, when the bond finally snapped into place, it felt like coming home. Like finding something I hadn't known I'd been missing. My wolf sang. The world tilted. And I felt him, all of him, flowing into me through the bond. His strength, his fear, his fierce protective love. Everything he'd been holding back. I've got you, he whispered against my skin. I've got you, and I'm never letting go. I believed him. We told Ethan the next morning. He was eating pancakes again, apparently this was now a tradition, when Cale and I came downstairs together. My son looked up, saw our joined hands, and grinned. Are you my dad now? He asked Cale. Cale looked at me. I nodded. If that's okay with you, Cale said carefully. Ethan thought about it for approximately 3 seconds. Okay. But you have to keep making pancakes. Deal. And you have to teach me to be strong like you. Cale crouched down so he was at eye level with my son. I'll teach you to be strong. But more importantly, I'll teach you to be kind. Strength without kindness is just cruelty. Ethan nodded seriously, like this was the most important lesson he'd ever learned. Then he threw his arms around Cale's neck and hugged him tight. And I watched an alpha king, a man who'd killed without hesitation to protect us, who commanded absolute authority, who made grown wolves tremble, carefully hug my 4-year-old son like he was the most precious thing in the world. My mate. My choice. My forever. 6 months later, Ethan called him Dad without hesitation. A year later, my former pack officially severed all ties, accepting that I was never coming back. 2 years later, Cale still made pancakes every Sunday morning. And every single day, I woke up knowing I'd made the right choice. Not because fate had decided it for me. But because I'd chosen it myself. Because sometimes the strongest thing an alpha can do isn't claim what's his. It's wait for someone to choose to be his. And sometimes the strongest thing an omega can do isn't submit. It's decide who's worth surrendering to. I'd been sold once. Treated like property. Told my whole life that I didn't matter, didn't have worth, didn't deserve to make my own choices. But Cale had given me something no one else ever had. He'd given me the power to say yes. And that made all the difference.